Hello everyone, welcome once again. We are in the control phase. In the last session we talked about introduction to the control phase. So as part of the control phase we are going to prepare a control plan. As we have already built solutions in the improve phase, we implemented a solution. After implementation, the next thing comes, how are we going to monitor and track the success of the solutions? How will we know if the solutions are working all right? How will we know if there is a problem in the solutions? And if there is a problem comes up in future, what will be our plan B or mitigation plan? Who will work on those solutions? And who will follow up? Who will be responsible? So all these questions are asked in the control phase. So we prepare a control plan. Control plan contains some elements that will help us to ensure the solutions that we have built, they should be able to improve the process, and not only able to improve the process but also be able to improve the process further. So after the implementing solutions, process will definitely improve, but it should not be the case that in the absence of a tracking or a control mechanism, the process goes back to its previous state where we began 2-3 months back. We don't want this to happen. So we want to build a detailed control plan here. So if you look at my screen, it talks about what is a control plan. A control plan provides a written summary description of the systems used in minimizing process and service variation. Control plans do not replace information contained in detailed instruction. This is important point to understand. A control plan does not mean if we have changed the ways of working, if we have implemented a new system, then it is all right to have a new instructions. But if the process has improved, then we only talk about those additional steps or additional ways of working, but we are not replacing that document and putting a new document together. That's not the intent. Then it further says that in a grand sense, the control plan describes the action that are required at each phase of the process, including receiving in-process, outgoing and periodic requirements to assure that all process outputs will be in a state of control. Very important line to understand when it says that all process output will be in a state of control. So now our process will produce certain outputs that the customer should perceive as an improved output. So control plan has to ensure that these outputs should stay in a state of control, should be able to meet customer requirement, because earlier we were not able to meet customer requirement. But with the new solutions, the process should be able to meet customer requirement, and a control plan should be able to control this entire circumstances. Ultimately, the control plan is a living document reflecting current methods of control and measurement system use. So after implementing the solutions, when we prepare a control plan, that might go through certain changes, as certain changes might occur in the control plan as in when we start tracking and monitoring the process and reporting the success of the process. We might change a control plan a bit, so that is going to evolve over a period of time. What are the things we are writing in the control plan that might go through a change? The process that is being controlled. What measures are we monitoring? The KPIs. How are we monitoring the performance of the process? For each KPI or for each measure, what are the trigger point where action should be taken? So trigger point means what are those key areas where we can expect a follow-up, a problem, or a failure mode might happen, or where the process is most vulnerable, or where you see a manual work is going to happen. So all these areas would require an action strategy where you need to measure them, where you need to track it more carefully. And what action should be taken when a trigger point is reached? So you know that when you receive a customer feedback, so before you receive a customer feedback, you send it to the customer. So when you're sending it to the customer, that is a point where an error can happen. Means you may not involve all information. So sending information to customer is the point where the problem may occur. So you want to do an audit here. The audit will be a control mechanism. When you receive the feedback from customer, that is when you receive the feedback, and this is called a trigger point has reached. Error would have already happened when you receive the feedback. When this happens, what is the action we are going to take? Who will take the action? So this information should be documented somewhere. So this is a control plan. This is, in short, the details of a control plan here. So this entire information we have to capture for all the solutions that we have just put together as part of a control plan. If you look at my screen, we are talking about the elements of a typical control plan here. So control plan elements would contain 5 different elements. To start with, we'll have the aligning of the systems and the structure. So before we had started, we would have some systems, some processes, some IT infrastructure. Now after the solutions have been implemented, we would have made some changes into the systems and IT infrastructure. So the new process has to align with what we already have in the system. Sometimes we are changing the entire process, entire IT infrastructure itself, we are completely revamping or changing. In that case, the new system has to align with the existing infrastructure. So alignment of system and infrastructure is very, very important. And when you are aligning it, you need to train people, you need to prepare documents. These are all part of it. Then change management comes into the play, communication comes into the play, project plan comes into the play, somebody who is going to own it, that comes into the play. So aligning of systems and infrastructure with the new setup, or aligning of the new setup with the old setup, becomes the critical and very important. The next element of a control plan is the documentation plan. In the documentation plan, what we try to understand is, as part of a control plan, we need to prepare some certain documents. We are improving the existing documents. We are not writing new instructions, but we are changing the existing instructions and adding additional details. We are adding additional screenshots. Maybe our process map has changed. We have created an FMEA. We will also create an FMEA for the process in case if we need to see in what all ways a process or solution can fail. We can keep the document handy with us. This is all part of a documentation plan. So documents need to be created. They need to be stored at a central location. Somebody needs to take the ownership. These documents needs to be audited on a regular interval, and any exceptions to these documents also needs to be taken care. So this is the entire documentation plan that needs to happen in the process. The third element of the control plan is monitoring plan. Very, very, very important. Monitoring plan tells us how are we going to monitor a process over a period of time. So you would have implemented the solutions, but how would you monitor whether a process is doing the intended job? What output it is producing? Is it meeting the requirement or not? Earlier we were not able to meet the requirement. That's why we did the process improvement project. This DMAC we applied. So now once you have solutions ready, are we now meeting requirement? How are we knowing this? How are we measuring the new process? What are the new KPIs? Do we have a dashboard? Have we trained the team? Do we know our sample strategy for the monitoring plan that we are putting together? What are the tools we are using? Is the team ready on that? So this entire information will be captured via monitoring plan of the control plan. The fourth element of the control plan is the response plan. Very, very important, and it works hand in hand with the monitoring plan. So when you develop a dashboard, let us say you develop certain KPIs that will tell the health of the process. Now these KPIs will tell you whether we are meeting the customer requirement or not, because KPIs will also have a target. The moment we are not meeting a target, the moment we see during the tracking of during the monitoring of the process, if we identify or come across a situation where process is going beyond the customer specification, what should we do? Should we stop the process? Should we give a feedback? Should we go to a plan B? Should we connect with the customer? Should we understand the requirements? Or should we go back to the analyze phase and try to find the root causes? Should we improve our solution? Should we take feedback from the customer and add the feedback into the existing solutions that we just put together? What is our response plan? And who will do it? That's very important, because what happens typically, the Six Sigma professional, they work on a process as a project. Once the project is over, they move out. They move to a new project and they hand it over to the operations team, which will take up this new process as a business as usual. So somebody from the operation needs to be trained on the new methodology. They have to create a response plan and they have to respond accordingly. The ownership has to happen, and regular intervention has to happen in the response plan, so that we know in the absence of a response plan what will we do. And also it is great that you never had to face a situation where you have to implement a response plan, but we should have a response plan ready. It is like our building is fireproof, will never catch fire. Good to know that, but what if the building catches fire? What is going to be a response plan? Response plan is the moment building catches fire, we'll invoke the evacuation drill, and people will gather at a place which is an empty area outside of the building, and people have to take these stairs. So that's an evacuation plan, that's a response plan, and you need to practice this response plan over a period of time, because if you do not practice a response plan, then nobody would know what was the response plan, and when you actually have a situation, your response plan may not work. So response plan is not prepared for an emergency situation. However, it is prepared, but then you have to practice it like a drill sometimes to see if situation comes, then is that response plan working or not. So that's very, very important. The fifth and the last element of a control plan is the training and communication plan. So everything that we just talked as part of the control plan, the aligning systems and structures, documentation plan, monitoring plan, response plan, and lastly training and communication plan. Anything that is changing in the process, it needs to be communicated to all the stakeholders. One is we have key stakeholders, and second we will have a list of people who will be getting affected directly or indirectly. The change impact analysis has to be done, and the impact results have to be communicated to everyone. They need to understand if there is a change coming in, they need to be ready. We need to make them ready. We need to make them ready by telling them on a periodic basis what should they do, what kind of training should they attend, and we need to be sensitive towards change and the people's priority. Their resistance might come in, so we have to be ready for it, but we have to deal it in the most effective manner. So the training plan has to be prepared. Maybe we have to train people for the new process, system, solutions. What type of training we need to prepare? We need to prepare training materials, give it to them, hand it over. Training plan needs to be prepared, trainer needs to be engaged, train the trainer has to happen, and video recording has to be done, that needs to be available on a SharePoint. Periodic training should happen, training calendar needs to be published. So that's all part of the training plan. Then communication again also has to happen. You need to choose the communication method, the media, the vehicle, the frequency, the communication owner who has to do it. The communication owner needs to find multiple ways to engage with people at different levels, in different frequency, in different capacity. So this is all a part of a control plan. So a control plan is not just a document of solution, okay, something goes wrong, that's what we'll do. That is not how it happens as part of a control plan. It talks about these 5 elements. And these 5 elements are supported by 2 key parts of control plan. One is the implemented improvements and the verified financial impact. Each control plan should come with verified financial impact. Business should gain from the new solutions. Business should gain in terms of profit, dollar, or increased customer satisfaction, or increased employee morale, increased sales, increased revenue. Something should enhance in positivity. That's the verified financial impact. We call them soft saving. Customer experience has improved, These are all soft saving, and we need to find a way to convert them into financial measures. So that's about the control plan in short. That's the first session, first part of the control plan. In the second part, we'll talk about these elements, what we just looked at as part of this. Thank you for watching. This is Shivendra Sharma.